The morning that changed everything. Emma Castellan's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The dashboard clock mocked her with glowing numbers, 7:58 a.m. 2 minutes. She had exactly 2 minutes to park her car, race through the lobby, swipe her badge, and slide into her desk before her supervisor noticed. 2 minutes to prove she belonged at Cross Industries, the company that had taken a chance on her when dozens of others hadn't. The parking lot sprawled before her like a concrete maze, every space occupied except for one narrow spot near the back. Emma's heart lifted for half a second before reality crashed down. Her small gray sedan couldn't fit there. A massive black luxury car, some expensive brand she couldn't even name, sat parked at a careless angle, taking up 2 spaces and completely blocking access to the empty spot beside it. No, 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 Emma whispered, her voice trembling with frustration. She circled the lot once more, desperately searching for another option. Nothing. The clock now read 7:59 a.m. This was her 3rd week at Cross Industries. 3 weeks of proving herself, working late, volunteering for extra projects, trying to be invisible and indispensable at the same time. 3 weeks of knowing that her probationary period meant she could be let go at any moment, for any reason, without explanation. Her student loans didn't care about explanations. Her rent didn't care about bad luck. Her mother's medical bills certainly didn't care about a blocked parking space. Emma pulled her car to a stop directly behind the offending vehicle, threw it into park, and stepped out. The morning air felt crisp against her flushed cheeks. Her heels clicked sharply against the pavement as she marched toward the building entrance, scanning for the owner of that ridiculously parked car. Then she saw him. A man stood near the glass elevator doors, tall and composed, adjusting his watch with the kind of casual elegance that spoke of money and power. His navy suit probably cost more than Emma's entire wardrobe. Dark hair styled perfectly, strong jawline, and an air of complete calm that made her blood boil even hotter. "Excuse me," Emma called out, her voice carrying across the parking lot with more force than she intended. "Is that your car?" The man turned slowly, his movements unhurried. When his eyes met hers, Emma felt a jolt she couldn't quite name. They were deep brown, intelligent, and curious. He looked at her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve, not an inconvenience interrupting his morning. "Yes," he said simply. His voice was smooth, controlled, the kind of voice that commanded boardrooms. "That's my car." "It's blocking mine," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady despite her pounding heart. "I can't get into the only available space. I'm late for work." He glanced back at the parking lot, then returned his attention to her. For a moment, Emma thought she saw something flicker across his face. Was it amusement? But his expression remained neutral, professional. "I apologize. I'll move it immediately." "When?" The word came out sharper than Emma intended, but she was past caring about politeness. "Because I'm already late, and some of us don't have the luxury of strolling in whenever we feel like it." That got his attention. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in focus, like he was really seeing her for the first time. Emma felt exposed under that gaze, suddenly aware of how she must look, flushed, frantic, her carefully chosen work outfit probably wrinkled from her tense drive. "You're absolutely right," he said, and his agreement surprised her. She'd expected defensiveness, maybe irritation. Instead, his tone remained calm, almost gentle. "I was careless. Give me 2 minutes." "People have jobs to protect," Emma continued, unable to stop herself now that the words had started flowing. "Not all of us can afford to be late. Some of us are still proving ourselves." Something shifted in his expression then, a deepening of that curious look. He studied her face, her clenched fists, the slight tremor in her shoulders that betrayed how much this moment mattered. "I understand," he said quietly. "And you're right to be upset. I'll move my car now." He walked past her toward the black sedan, keys already in hand. Emma stood frozen, suddenly feeling foolish. Had she overreacted? But no, she was right. He had parked carelessly. The fact that he'd been gracious about it didn't change that. The luxury car purred to life and glided out of the space with practiced ease. Emma rushed to her own vehicle, hands shaking as she maneuvered into the newly available spot. The clock now read 8:04 a.m. 4 minutes late. It felt like a death sentence. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt eternal. Emma stared at her reflection in the polished metal doors, trying to compose herself. Her cheeks were still flushed, her eyes too bright. She looked like someone who just had a confrontation in a parking lot, which was exactly what she was. Professional, she whispered to herself. Be professional. This job matters. The marketing department buzzed with Monday morning energy when Emma arrived. She slipped toward her cubicle, hoping to go unnoticed, but her supervisor's voice cut through the ambient noise. Emma. Conference room C. Now. Her stomach dropped. Yes, Ms. Rivera. Conference room C was already half full when Emma entered, sliding into a seat near the back. The other new hires sat around the long table, looking nervous and eager in equal measure. Ms. Rivera stood at the front, organizing papers with brisk efficiency. Good morning, everyone, Ms. Rivera began. We're starting with something special today. Mr. Cross himself wants to meet our newest team members personally. He makes it a point to connect with every new hire during their probationary period. Emma's heart hammered. Mr. Cross. The CEO. She'd heard the name whispered in break rooms, seen his signature on company-wide emails, but she'd never expected to meet him. Not this soon. Not like this. The door opened. Footsteps crossed the room, confident and unhurried. Emma kept her eyes on the notepad in front of her, pen poised as if ready to take notes, anything to avoid seeming nervous. Thank you all for being here, a familiar voice said. Emma's pen froze. That voice. Smooth, controlled, commanding. No. It couldn't be. She lifted her eyes slowly, dreading what she knew she would see. There, at the head of the conference table, stood the man from the parking lot. The same navy suit. The same composed expression. The same intelligent brown eyes that now swept across the room with natural authority, Nathaniel Cross. CEO of Cross Industries. Her boss. The man she just lectured about parking etiquette and the luxury of being late. The room tilted. Emma's face burned with mortification so intense it felt physical. Her throat constricted. Her hands gripped the edge of the table to keep from shaking visibly. This couldn't be happening. This absolutely could not be happening. I'm Nathaniel Cross, he continued, his voice carrying easily across the room. I want to personally welcome each of you to Cross Industries. We value innovation, integrity, and the courage to speak honestly, even when it's difficult. His eyes moved across the faces at the table, landing briefly on each person. When his gaze reached Emma, it paused. Just for a heartbeat. His expression didn't change, no recognition, no smile, no judgment. Just that same curious, measuring look he'd given her in the parking lot. Then he moved on, continuing his welcome speech as if nothing had happened. But Emma barely heard the words. All she could think was one terrible, overwhelming question: had she just destroyed her career before it even began? Would you like me to continue with part 2, Consequences and Unexpected Connections? Yes. 01:41 Orchestrated romantic narrative continuation with character development and tension. The user wants me to continue with part 2 of the story. I need to write 1,200 words continuing from where part 1 left off. The story should continue Emma and Nathaniel's story. Show Emma dealing with embarrassment and fear. Reveal Nathaniel's perspective, he was impressed by her courage. Include an unexpected one-on-one meeting in his office. build growing tension and chemistry between them. End with a surprising turn that hints at a deeper connection. Use simple English, be engaging and romantic. Stay around 1200 words. Maintain the same style and tone as part 1. Consequences and unexpected connections. The meeting lasted 30 minutes, but to Emma, it felt like 30 hours. Nathaniel Cross spoke about company values, growth opportunities, and the importance of fresh perspectives. His voice remained steady and professional, never once wavering or looking her way again. Emma sat rigid in her chair, trying to appear attentive while her mind spun in endless circles of panic and regret. When he finally left the room, Emma released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The other new hires chattered excitedly around her, impressed by the CEO's personal touch, but Emma felt hollow. She gathered her notebook and stood on shaky legs. "Emma, wait." Ms. Rivera's voice stopped her at the door. "Mr. Cross's assistant just messaged me. He wants to see you in his office at 10 o'clock. The room tilted again. Emma's mouth went dry. "His office?" "Yes. 25th floor, executive suite. Don't be late." Ms. Rivera's expression was unreadable, but her tone carried a warning Emma couldn't miss. The next hour crawled by with agonizing slowness. Emma tried to focus on her work, responding to emails she barely read, attending to tasks she couldn't remember 5 minutes later. Her coworkers noticed her distraction but politely said nothing. At 9:55 a.m., Emma stood, smoothed her skirt, and headed for the elevator. The 25th floor was a different world. Thick carpets muffled footsteps. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city sprawling below. Everything here whispered of power and success, from the modern art on the walls to the receptionist's designer glasses. "Emma Castellan," she said quietly to the elegant woman at the desk. "I have an appointment with Mr. Cross." The receptionist smiled warmly. "He's expecting you. Go right in." Emma's hand trembled slightly as she reached for the heavy glass door. She pushed it open and stepped into an office that took her breath away. The space was enormous, dominated by a massive desk that faced windows overlooking the entire downtown skyline. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with leather-bound volumes and industry awards. The other wall displayed abstract paintings that probably cost more than Emma's car. Nathaniel Cross stood by the windows, hands in his pockets, gazing out at the city below. He didn't turn immediately when she entered, giving Emma a moment to study him. In this light, he looked younger than she'd first thought, maybe mid-30s. His posture was relaxed but alert, like a man comfortable with power but not corrupted by it. "Close the door, please," he said without turning around. Emma obeyed, her heart thundering so loudly she was certain he could hear it. She stood awkwardly near the door, unsure whether to speak or wait. Finally, he turned to face her. His expression was thoughtful, unreadable. "Please, sit." Emma crossed the room on unsteady legs and lowered herself into one of the chairs facing his desk. Nathaniel moved to his own chair, settling into it with the easy grace of someone who'd occupied that seat for years. "Do you know why I asked you here?" he began. Emma's throat tightened. "To fire me." Surprise flickered across his face, followed by something that might have been amusement. "Fire you? Why would I do that?" "Because of this morning," Emma said, forcing the words out. "In the parking lot. I was rude. Disrespectful. I didn't know who you were, but that's not an excuse." "I'm sorry, Mr. Cross. I was stressed about being late, and I took it out on you. It was unprofessional." Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, studying her with that same curious intensity that had unsettled her earlier. "You think standing up for yourself when someone blocked your car was disrespectful?" "I think the way I spoke to you was inappropriate," Emma said carefully. "Interesting." He steepled his fingers beneath his chin. "Tell me, Emma, may I call you Emma?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. Tell me, Emma, what would you have done differently if you'd known I was the CEO? The question caught her off guard. Emma hesitated, choosing her words carefully. I would have been more diplomatic. More measured. In other words, you would have been less honest, Nathaniel said. It wasn't quite a question. Emma met his eyes, searching for the trap in his words. Yes, I suppose so. That's exactly the problem. Nathaniel stood and moved to the window again, his back to her. Do you know how many people work in this building, Emma? Around 300, I think. 347, he corrected. And do you know how many of them would tell me if I'd parked carelessly and inconvenienced them? Emma didn't answer. She didn't need to. None, Nathaniel said quietly. Not a single person. They'd smile, make excuses, find another way around the problem. They'd never dream of confronting me the way you did this morning. Do you know why? Because you're the CEO, Emma said. Because they're afraid. He turned to face her again, and this time his expression was intense, almost passionate. They're afraid of losing their jobs, of being judged, of stepping out of line. They've learned that honesty is dangerous, that speaking truth to power costs more than it's worth. And that fear, that silence, is killing this company. Emma stared at him, confused. This wasn't the conversation she'd expected. Nathaniel moved back to his desk, pulling out a folder. I've been reviewing your file. Your work in the past 3 weeks has been exceptional. Your ideas for the Morrison campaign were innovative. Your attention to detail is remarkable. And this morning, in that parking lot, you showed something I rarely see in corporate environments: genuine courage. Courage? Emma's voice came out barely above a whisper. You saw a problem, and you addressed it directly, without knowing the consequences. You spoke honestly when it would have been easier to stay silent. That's the kind of thinking I need more of in this company. That's the kind of person I want on my leadership team. Emma's head spun. I don't understand. You're not angry? Angry? Nathaniel's lips curved into a slight smile, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. I'm impressed. And intrigued. He paused, his eyes searching hers. I'm also aware that I owe you an apology. You were right this morning. I was careless with my parking. I was distracted, running late myself, and I didn't consider how my actions might affect others. So I'm sorry, Emma. Truly. The sincerity in his voice made Emma's chest tighten with an emotion she couldn't quite name. This powerful man, her boss, was apologizing to her. Not because he had to, but because he genuinely meant it. Thank you, Emma managed. That means a lot. I have a proposition for you, Nathaniel said, leaning forward slightly. I'm starting a new initiative, a task force to improve company culture and innovation. I need people who aren't afraid to challenge the status quo, who will tell me the truth even when it's uncomfortable. I want you on that team. Emma's eyes widened. Mr. Cross, I've only been here 3 weeks. Which means you haven't been here long enough to learn to be afraid, he interrupted. You still see things clearly. That's valuable. More valuable than you realize. I don't know what to say. Say yes. His voice was warm now, almost gentle. Say you'll take the risk. Say you'll keep being exactly the person who confronted me in that parking lot. Emma looked into those intelligent brown eyes and saw something that made her heart skip. Not just professional respect, but genuine interest. Curiosity. Maybe even attraction, though she hardly dared think it. Yes, she heard herself say. I'll do it. Nathaniel's smile widened, transforming his entire face. He looked younger, more approachable, devastatingly handsome. Excellent. We'll start with a dinner meeting tomorrow night. There are several things I'd like to discuss with you about the company's future direction. A dinner meeting? Emma repeated, her pulse quickening. Is that a problem? He tilted his head slightly, watching her reaction with clear amusement. No, of course not, Emma said quickly, though her mind raced. Was this still professional? Was she reading too much into his tone, his smile, the way his eyes seemed to linger on her face? Good. Nathaniel walked her to the door, standing close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. Emma? She turned, finding herself inches from him. Yes? Thank you, he said softly. For reminding me this morning that titles don't matter as much as truth. And for agreeing to help me change this company for the better. As Emma left his office, her mind whirled with confusion and possibility. The morning that had started with such disaster had somehow transformed into opportunity. But as the elevator descended, carrying her back to reality, one thought dominated all others: what had just happened between them in that office? And why did tomorrow night's dinner feel less like a business meeting and more like something else entirely, something dangerous, thrilling, and completely unexpected? The elevator doors opened on the 15th floor, and Emma stepped out into her ordinary world, knowing that nothing about her life at Cross Industries would ever be ordinary again.